When I checked my bank account and saw the empty space where $43,000 used to be, I knew I'd been played by the man I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. My name is Diana Hartley, and at 51, I should have known better. I'm a registered nurse at Providence Portland Medical Center, the kind of person who's seen every con, every manipulation, every sad story designed to tug at heartstrings and open wallets. I've worked in the ER for 27 years, and I thought I could spot a liar from across a crowded room. I thought my bullshit detector was finely tuned from decades of patients exaggerating symptoms for pain meds or fabricating insurance information. Turns out I was just as gullible as anyone else when it came to matters of the heart. I met Ryan Castellano on a dating app in February, one of those over 50 platforms that promises meaningful connections instead of hookups. His profile picture showed a man with salt and pepper hair, kind eyes, and a smile that reached all the way to the crinkles around his eyes. He was 53, a contractor who specialized in historic home renovations. Divorced for 5 years with 2 adult children, he clearly adored based on the photos. His bio was simple, looking for someone to share good food, good conversation, and the second half of life. It was exactly what I was looking for too. My marriage had ended 8 years ago when my ex-husband decided he preferred his 28-year-old dental hygienist to the woman who'd supported him through grad school and raised his children. The divorce had been messy, expensive, and had left me with trust issues that made dating feel like walking through a minefield blindfolded. But my kids were grown, Tyler working as a software engineer in Seattle, and Emma in her 2nd year of law school at UC Berkeley, and I was tired of spending every evening alone with my cat Gatsby, watching Netflix and pretending I was content. Ryan's first message was thoughtful, referencing something specific from my profile about how I loved hiking in the gorge but was terrified of heights, which made certain trails both thrilling and terrifying. We messaged for 2 weeks before he suggested coffee, and that coffee turned into dinner, and that dinner turned into a relationship that felt for the first time in nearly a decade like coming home. He was attentive without being clingy, funny without being cruel, interested in my work, my kids, my dreams for retirement. He brought me flowers on our 3rd date, not roses but sunflowers, because he'd remembered me mentioning they were my favorite. He kissed me goodnight at my door like we had all the time in the world, no pressure, no expectations. By April, we were spending every weekend together. He'd come to my house in Northeast Portland, that little bungalow I'd bought after the divorce, and we'd cook dinner together while listening to old jazz records. Or I'd drive out to Gresham where he rented a small house near his workshop, and he'd show me the furniture he was restoring. Beautiful old pieces he found at estate sales and brought back to life with his hands. Those hands, rough from work, scarred from decades of carpentry, but gentle when they touched my face. I introduced him to my book club in May. He charmed every single one of them, discussing Toni Morrison with the same enthusiasm he brought to talking about dovetail joints and wood grain. My friend Patricia pulled me aside in the kitchen and said, "Dee, if you don't marry this man, I will." I laughed, but part of me was already thinking about forever. In June, we took a trip to Cannon Beach, walked on the sand at sunset, ate clam chowder at a restaurant overlooking Haystack Rock, made love in our hotel room with the windows open and the sound of waves crashing outside. He told me he loved me for the first time as we watched the sun sink into the Pacific, the sky turning shades of orange and pink that didn't seem real. "I love you too," I'd whispered back, and I meant it with everything I had. That's when things started to change, subtly at first, so subtly I almost didn't notice. He started canceling plans last minute, work emergency, client issue, something that couldn't wait. I understood. I was a nurse. I knew about unpredictable schedules, so I didn't push. But there was something in his voice when he apologized, something tight and strained that hadn't been there before. Then there were the phone calls he'd taken another room. He'd see his phone light up, glance at the screen, and excuse himself to the porch or the bathroom or his truck. When I asked who it was, he'd say it was his ex-wife, something about their kids, nothing to worry about. I wanted to believe him, so I did. In July, he started asking questions about my finance, casual questions at first. How was I doing after the divorce? Had my ex been fair in the settlement? Did I have savings, investment? It felt like the natural progression of a serious relationship, the kind of conversations you have when you're thinking about building a life together. I told him the truth, that I'd gotten half of everything, that I'd been smart with my money, that I had a good nest egg built up from years of working overtime and living modestly that I was planning to retire at 55 and travel, see all the places I'd been too busy to visit while I was raising kids and working double shifts. "You've worked hard," he said, kissing my forehead. "You deserve to enjoy it." In early August, Ryan came to my house looking worse than I'd ever seen him. His face was pale, almost gray, and he was moving carefully like everything hurt. I immediately went into nurse mode, taking his vitals, checking his pupils, asking all the right questions. "I'm fine," he insisted, but he wasn't fine. His blood pressure was elevated, and when I pressed on his abdomen, he winced. "Ryan, you need to see a doctor. I have an appointment next week. It's nothing, just some indigestion." But it wasn't nothing. Over the next few days, he got worse. The pain increased. He started losing weight. He looked exhausted all the time, like he wasn't sleeping. I was terrified it was cancer. Pancreatic maybe, or liver, something bad. Something that could take him away from me just when I'd found him. He finally went to his doctor's appointment, and I waited by my phone like a teenager, jumping every time it buzzed. When he called, his voice was shaky. "Diana, can I come over? I need to talk to you." He showed up 20 minutes later, and I could see he'd been crying. My heart dropped into my stomach. "What is it? What did they find?" "I have a mass on my kidney. They need to do more tests, but the doctor thinks it might be cancer. Stage 3, maybe stage 4. I pulled him into my arms while he sobbed against my shoulder, and I felt my whole world tilt. We'd only been together 6 months, but I couldn't imagine losing him. Couldn't imagine going back to that empty house with just Gatsby and my Netflix queue. "We'll fight this," I said firmly. "Whatever it takes, we'll fight it." Over the next week, Ryan went through a battery of tests. CT scans, MRIs, biopsies. He let me come to some of the appointments, and I held his hand in waiting rooms that smelled like antiseptic and fear. The doctors at OHSU confirmed it. Renal cell carcinoma, stage 3. The tumor was large but potentially operable. He'd need surgery to remove the kidney, followed by targeted therapy. The good news was that it was treatable. The bad news was that his insurance situation was complicated. "I let my coverage lapse," he admitted one night, sitting at my kitchen table with his head in his hands. "Business has been slow the last year. I had to choose between paying for insurance and paying for my workshop lease. I chose wrong." "What about the Affordable Care Act? You can get coverage through that." I tried, but there's a waiting period and the cancer won't wait. "The surgeon wants to operate within the next 4 weeks, or the tumor could spread to lymph node, and then we're looking at stage 4. At that point, my survival rate drops to less than 10%. I felt cold all over. "How much does the surgery cost? Without insurance? Around $60,000, plus the imaging, the anesthesia, the hospital stay. Total is closer to $90,000. "I don't have it, Diana. I have maybe $12,000 in savings. I've already called my ex, but she remarried and her new husband doesn't want to help with my medical bills. My kids are struggling with their own student loans. I don't know what to do." I looked at this man I loved, this man who might die because he couldn't afford to have his life saved, and I made a decision. "I'll pay for it." His head snapped up. "What? No, Diana, I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything. I'm choosing to do it. I have the money. I've been saving for years, and what good is money if I can't use it to save someone I love? It's too much. I could never pay you back. I don't care about being paid back. I care about you surviving, about you being here, about us having a future together." He cried again, but this time it was relief mixed with gratitude. He held me so tight I could barely breathe, whispering thank you over and over into my hair. "I'll pay you back," he promised. "I swear to God, Diana, I'll pay you back, every penny, even if it takes me the rest of my life. Just survive," I told him. "That's all the payment I need." The next day, I went to my bank and withdrew $43,000 from my retirement account. It was half of what I'd saved, half of my dreams of traveling and early retirement, but Ryan was worth it. Our future was worth it. The hospital required payment upfront for uninsured patients, so I wrote a check for the full surgical cost plus the hospital fees. Ryan was scheduled for surgery on August 28th, and I took the day off work to be there, except he asked me not to come. "I don't want you to see me like that," he said. "Weak and scared and hooked up to machine. Let me do this on my own, and I'll call you as soon as I'm out of recovery." It seemed strange, but I tried to understand. Some people need to face their fears alone. Some people don't want the person they love to see them vulnerable. So I stayed home on August 28th, cleaned my house compulsively, couldn't eat, couldn't focus, just waited for the phone to ring. It never did. At 6 p.m., I called him. It went straight to voicemail. I told myself he was still in recovery, still groggy from anesthesia, that I'd hear from him soon. At 9 p.m., I called the hospital, asked for Ryan Castellano in post-op. "We don't have a patient by that name," the receptionist said. "Are you sure? He had kidney surgery today. Dr. Morrison was his surgeon." Dr. Morrison didn't have any surgery scheduled today, and I'm showing no recent admissions for a Ryan Castellano. My hands started shaking. "Can you check your system? Maybe he's registered under a different name." "Ma'am, I've checked. There's no one here by that name." I hung up and immediately called Ryan's phone again, straight to voicemail. I called 15 more times over the next hour. Voicemail every time. At midnight, I drove to his house in Gresham. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard they ached, and I kept telling myself there was an explanation. He'd gone to a different hospital. There had been a miscommunication. He was fine. Everything was fine. But when I got to his address, the house was dark. I knocked on the door. No answer. I looked in the windows and saw nothing. Empty rooms, no furniture, no signs that anyone had ever lived there. I felt like I was going to throw up. I drove to his workshop, the place where he supposedly restored furniture. It was a unit in a small industrial complex, and when I got there, the door was locked. I peered through the grimy window and saw an empty space. No workbenches, no tools, no beautiful furniture waiting to be restored. That's when I knew there was no cancer. There probably never had been. The appointments I'd gone to with him, probably staged. The test results, fake. The doctor's recommendations, fiction. Ryan Castellano, the man I loved, the man I'd given $43,000 to save, had never been sick at all. He'd been conning me from the very beginning. I drove home in a daze, my mind refusing to fully process what was happening. I kept thinking there had to be another explanation. People don't do this. People don't fake cancer and steal money from women who love them. That's movie villain stuff, not real life. But when I got home and opened my laptop, when I started searching for information about him, the truth crashed over me like a wave. There was no Ryan Castellano listed as a contractor in Oregon, no business license, no website, no social media presence, except for the dating profile that had now been deleted. I reverse searched his photos and found them on a stock photography site. Not him at all, just some model whose image had been stolen. The phone number he'd given me? Disconnected. The email address bounced back. Every single piece of information he'd given me was fake. I sat on my living room floor, Gatsby curling around my legs, and I sobbed until I couldn't breathe. Not just because of the money though, $43,000 was devastating, but because of what the money represented. My trust, my love, my belief that I'd finally found someone who saw me, valued me, wanted to build a life with me. All of it was a lie. I was 51 years old, a smart woman with a graduate degree and decades of life experience, and I'd been played like a complete fool. The shame was almost worse than the loss. The next morning I reported it to the police, sat across from a detective who looked about 12 years old, and told him the whole humiliating story. He took notes, asked questions, and finally said what I already knew. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but romance scams are extremely difficult to prosecute. The person you knew as Ryan Castellano probably isn't even in Oregon. These operations are often run from overseas, and even if we could find him, getting your money back is almost impossible. The funds are usually moved through multiple accounts and converted to cryptocurrency within hours. So I'm just supposed to accept that I've been robbed. You can file a civil suit if we're able to identify and locate the perpetrator, but realistically, your chances of recovery are very slim. I walked out of the police station feeling more helpless than I'd ever felt in my life. When I got home, I did what I always do when I'm overwhelmed. I called my kids. Emma answered on the second ring. Mom, what's wrong? You never called this early. So I told her everything about Ryan, the relationship, the cancer diagnosis, the money. And as I said it all out loud, I heard how stupid it sounded, how obvious the con was, how blind I'd been. Mom, Emma said when I finished, her voice tight with anger. This is not your fault. This person is a predator. They target good people and exploit their kindness. You did nothing wrong. I gave him $43,000 without doing any research, without verifying anything. What kind of idiot does that? The kind who's in love and wants to save someone's life? That's not idiocy, Mom. That's compassion. Well, my compassion just cost me half my retirement savings. So we'll figure it out. Tyler and I can help. No, absolutely not. You have student loans and your own life. I'm not taking money from my children because I was stupid enough to get scammed. Then what are you going to do? I don't know, but I'll figure it out. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen and stared at the coffee cup Ryan had used the last time he was here. It was still in my sink, waiting to be washed, like I'd been waiting for him to call, waiting for an explanation that would never come. That's when the anger started. Not at myself, though there was plenty of that, but at him, at Ryan Castellano or whatever his real name was, at the person who'd looked me in the eyes and told me he loved me while planning to rob me blind. He thought I was just another Mark, just another lonely, middle-aged woman, desperate enough for companionship that she'd hand over her life savings without question. He thought I'd report it to the police, cry about it to my friends, and eventually move on. That I'd chalk it up to a painful lesson learned and be more careful next time. He thought he'd gotten away with it. He was wrong, because I wasn't just going to accept this. I wasn't just going to let him disappear into the night with my money and my dignity. I was going to find him, and I was going to make him pay. Not with violence. I wasn't going to risk my nursing license or my freedom. But there are other ways to make someone pay. Other ways to get justice when the legal system fails you. I just had to figure out what they were. I started by documenting everything. Every text message we'd exchanged, every email, every photo he'd sent me. I saved it all to a hard drive and backed it up to the cloud. Then I started analyzing the information, looking for clues I'd missed, details that might tell me who he really was. The photos were stolen, but the locations in the backgrounds might not be. I zoomed in on every image, looking for identifying features, street signs, business names, anything that might tell me where the pictures were actually taken. The phone number was disconnected, but I looked up the area code. It was registered to Spokane, Washington, not Portland. That was interesting. The workshop where I'd watched him supposedly restore furniture? I went back during daylight hours and talked to the owner of the complex. Showed him Ryan's photo. "Oh yeah, I know that guy," the owner said. "He rented that unit for 3 months, paid cash, said he was between shops and just needed temporary space. Did he give you a name?" "Sure did. Let me check my records." He pulled out a worn notebook. "Here it is, Michael Torres. That's the name on the lease. Can I get his contact information? I just have a phone number, but it doesn't work anymore. He cleared out in early August, paid through the end of the month and left. Didn't even ask for his deposit back." Michael Torres. Maybe that was his real name, or maybe it was just another alias, but it was something. I went to the house in Gresham next, knocked on doors of neighboring houses until I found someone who remembered him. "Yeah, he lived there for about 4 months, an elderly woman told me. Kept to himself mostly. Told me he was going through a divorce and needed a place to clear his head. Seemed like a nice man." "Did you ever see him with anyone?" "A woman, maybe." She thought for a moment. "Now that you mention it, yes. I saw him with a younger woman a few times. Blonde, pretty. She'd come by in the evenings. I assumed she was his girlfriend." My stomach turned. How many of us were there? How many women had he been stringing along, stealing from? "Do you know where he moved to?" "No idea. He was there one day and gone the next. Landlord said he broke his lease, lost his deposit. Must have been in a hurry to leave. A hurry because he'd just stolen $43,000 from me and needed to disappear before I figured it out. I spent the next 2 weeks playing detective. I joined online forums for romance scam victims and learned I was far from alone. There were hundreds of women with stories just like mine. Different details, different names, but the same basic con. Man creates fake profile. Man develops a relationship with vulnerable woman. Man manufactures crisis requiring money. Man disappears with funds. The forums had advice on how to track scammers, how to reverse search photos, how to identify fake documents. I absorbed it all, learning the language of catfishing and romance fraud, becoming an expert in something I'd never wanted to know anything about. And then, 3 weeks after Ryan vanished, I got a message on Facebook from a woman named Lauren Mitchell. "Hi Diana, you don't know me, but I think we've both been scammed by the same man. Can we talk?" I stared at Lauren's message for a full minute before responding. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend I was the only one, that what Ryan and I had was at least unique, even if it was fake, but that was pride talking. And pride had already cost me $43,000. I typed back, "Yes, when and where?" We met the next day at a coffee shop in Southeast Portland, one of those places with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. I got there early, ordered a tea I didn't drink, and watched the door like I was waiting for a threat instead of an ally. Lauren walked in at exactly 3 o'clock. She was younger than me, maybe 40, with blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail and tired eyes that suggested she hadn't been sleeping well either. She spotted me immediately. I told her I'd be wearing a blue cardigan and walked over with the kind of hesitant smile people wear when they're about to share something humiliating. "Diana?" "Lauren, thank you for reaching out." We sat down, and for a moment neither of us knew how to start. How do you begin a conversation about mutual victimization? How do you bond over being fooled by the same man? Lauren spoke first. "His name was Marcus Webb when I knew him. We met on Match in April. He said he was an architect who specialized in sustainable design. We dated for 3 months before he told me he needed money for his mother's cancer treatment." My chest tightened. "How much?" $32,000, everything I'd saved from my divorce settlement. "Jesus, I'm so sorry. How much did he take from you?" $43,000. He told me he had kidney cancer. Lauren's laugh was bitter. "Of course he did. Always something serious enough that you can't say no. Always something that makes you the villain if you don't help." "When did you figure it out?" 2 weeks ago. I went to visit him at the hospital where his mother was supposedly being treated, and they'd never heard of either of them. I tried calling him and got nothing. Went to his apartment and found it empty. That's when I started searching searching online and found forums about romance scams. I posted his photo asking if anyone had seen him, and another woman messaged me. She'd been scammed by someone using a different name but the same photo. How many of us are there? So far I've found 5. You're number 6, and I'm guessing there are more who haven't come forward yet because they're too embarrassed. I thought about how close I'd come to not reporting, how the shame had almost kept me silent. What are the other stories? Lauren pulled out her phone and showed me a document she'd been compiling. 6 women ranging in age from 38 to 57. Different cities across the Pacific Northwest. Portland, Seattle, Spokane, Boise, Eugene. Different names he'd used. Ryan Castellano, Marcus Webb, David Chen, Alex Martinez, James Sullivan, Christopher Blake. Different professions he'd claimed. Contractor, architect, engineer, small business owner, but always the same pattern. Romance, relationship, crisis, money, disappearance. The total he'd stolen from all of us combined was over $200,000. My God, I whispered. This is his job. This is what he does for a living. Looks like it, and he's good at it. Really good. Every woman I've talked to described him the same way. Charming, attentive, romantic. He makes you feel seen, makes you feel special, and then he makes you feel like you're the only one who can save him. Have any of you gone to the police? All of us. And all of us got the same response you probably did. They're sorry, they'll file a report, but the chances of catching him or recovering the money are basically 0, so he just gets away with it, unless we do something about it. I looked up from the phone. What do you mean? Lauren leaned forward, her voice dropping. The police won't help us. The legal system won't help us. But that doesn't mean we're helpless. We know what he looks like. We know his patterns. We know how he operates. And now we have each other. You want to track him down ourselves? I want to make sure he doesn't do this to anyone else. And if we happen to recover our money in the process, even better. It was crazy. It was potentially dangerous. It was possibly illegal depending on what exactly Lauren had in mind. But I was already nodding. I'm in. Over the next week, Lauren organized what she called the group. All 6 of us meeting via video call to pool our information and resources. There was Samantha from Seattle, who'd lost $28,000 to David Chen for his supposed business loan. There was Jennifer from Spokane, who'd given Alex Martinez $35,000 for his daughter's medical bill. There was Patricia from Eugene, who'd handed over $18,000 to James Sullivan for his father's funeral expenses. And there was Ruth from Boise, who'd been scammed out of $41,000 by Christopher Blake for his emergency dental surgery. 6 women, 6 cities, 6 fake identities. But as we compared notes, we realized they weren't entirely fake. The details he'd used had been too specific, too consistent. The workshop in Gresham appeared in multiple women's stories. The house too. He'd just changed the narrative around them. He's working a territory, Samantha said during our second video call. She was a data analyst, and she'd mapped out all our locations and dates. He hits a city, runs the scam on 1 or 2 women, then moves to the next city before anyone can connect the dots. He stays in each place for about 3 to 4 months, which is long enough to build trust, but short enough to avoid suspicion. So where is he now? I asked. Based on the pattern, he should be in Vancouver or maybe Tacoma, somewhere in the Seattle metro area. That's the only major city in the region he hasn't hit yet. Lauren pulled up several dating sites on her screen. I've been checking profiles in those areas using the characteristics we know. White male, 50 to 55 years old, professional background, divorced with adult children. There are hundreds of matches, so we narrow it down, Patricia said. She was a private investigator, not professionally, but she'd become one trying to track down James Sullivan. We know he uses stock photos, but he has to meet people eventually. We know his height, his build, his general appearance from when he met with us. We look for men who match that description, and then we dig deeper. That could take months, Ruth protested. You have somewhere better to be? Patricia shot back. He stole from us, from all of us, and he's going to keep stealing from other women unless we stop him. We spent hours going through profile, comparing photos to the real man we'd met. It was tedious work, made worse by the fact that we were looking at hundreds of middle-aged men who all kind of look the same in their carefully curated profile pictures. But then Jennifer found something. Wait, look at this one. She screen shared a profile from a site called Our Time. The photo showed a man in his early 50s with dark hair graying at the temples. The picture was different from the stock photos he'd used with us, but the description was eerily familiar. Robert Mitchell, 54, civil engineer specializing in bridge design, divorced, 2 adult kids. kids, looking for someone to share adventures and build a future with. That could be anyone, Samantha said skeptically. Look at the third photo in his gallery. Jennifer clicked through to a picture of Robert standing in front of a mountain vista. But it was the clothing that made my breath catch. A blue fleece jacket with a distinctive yellow stripe across the chest. I'd seen that jacket before. Ryan had worn it on our trip to Cannon Beach. That's him, I said, my voice shaking. That's the same jacket. Are you sure? Lauren asked. Positive. I took a picture of him wearing it. Hold on. I pulled up my photos and found the image. Ryan standing on the beach, smiling at the camera, wearing that exact blue and yellow jacket. It's him, Lauren confirmed. Same jacket, same build, same everything. He's in Vancouver, Washington, active on the site as of yesterday. We had found him. The question now was what to do about it. We need to be smart about this, Patricia said. If we spook him, he'll disappear again. We need a plan. I have an idea, I said slowly. But you're all going to think I'm crazy. They didn't think I was crazy. They thought I was brilliant. The plan was simple. I would create a fake profile and match with Robert Mitchell. I would become exactly the kind of woman he targeted. Divorced, vulnerable, financially stable, looking for love. I would let him run his con, and this time, we'd document everything. Every conversation, every date, every lie. We'd gather evidence that the police couldn't ignore. And when he asked for money, we'd be ready. It's risky, Lauren warned. What if he recognizes you? He won't. I'll change my appearance. Dye my hair, wear different makeup, use photos that don't look like my real life style. And we only met a handful of times. I'm betting he barely remembers what I look like. What if he Googles your fake name? Then we build her a complete online presence, social media accounts, a fake job, a whole digital footprint. We make her real enough that his research comes back clean. It took us 3 days to create Michelle Sander, 49-year-old divorced accountant living in Vancouver. We used photos of Patricia's cousin who'd given permission, built her a Facebook page with years of fake posts, created a LinkedIn profile with a complete employment history. Michelle Sanders loved hiking, wine tasting, and romantic comedy. She was recently divorced after 23 years of marriage and was ready to find love again. She was perfect bait. I swiped right on Robert Mitchell's profile from Michelle's account and we waited. It took 6 hours for him to match back and send a message. Hi Michelle, your profile caught my eye. I love that you're not afraid to embrace this next chapter of life. Would you like to chat? Reading his words made my stomach turn. The same carefully crafted charm, the same calculated approach. But this time, I wasn't a victim. I was a hunter. Hi Robert, I typed back. I'd love to chat. Tell me about yourself. Over the next 2 weeks, we fell into the same pattern I'd experienced before. Long messages about our hopes and dreams, shared stories about our failed marriages, slow disclosure of vulnerabilities and desires. He was patient, never pushy, always respectful, the perfect gentleman. We scheduled our first coffee date for a Saturday afternoon at a Starbucks in downtown Vancouver. I dyed my hair darker, wore glasses I didn't need, dressed in clothes that weren't my usual style. The other women would be nearby, watching, recording everything on their phones from different angles. I got there 15 minutes early, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was the man who'd stolen from me, lied to me, made me feel like a fool. And now I was voluntarily walking back into his trap. At exactly 2 o'clock, he walked in. And despite the different hair color, despite the new clothes, despite the fake name on the dating profile, I knew him instantly. The way he moved, the way he scanned the room, the practiced smile he wore like a mask. Ryan Castellano, Marcus Webb, David Chen, Alex Martinez, James Sullivan, Christopher Blake, Robert Mitchell, the man with 1,000 names and zero conscience. I raised my hand, Michelle's hand, and waved. He spotted me and walked over, his smile widening. Michelle? Wow, you're even more beautiful in person. The same line he'd used on me, probably the same line he used on everyone. Thank you, Robert. You're very handsome yourself. We ordered coffee and sat down and I watched him perform. Every gesture was calculated. Every story was designed to elicit sympathy or admiration. Every question was carefully crafted to gather information he could use later. But I wasn't Diana anymore. I was Michelle. And Michelle was just charmed enough to be interesting but skeptical enough to seem real. Over the next month, we went on 6 dates. Dinner, a movie, a walk along the Columbia River, a wine tasting in the gorge. Each time I wore a wire that Patricia had acquired through her private investigator contacts. Each time, the other women were nearby, documenting everything. He was good, really good. He never pushed for physical intimacy, never asked inappropriate questions, never made me uncomfortable. He was building trust, establishing himself as a safe person, someone I could rely on. In our 7th week of dating, he started the pivot. Small mentions of stress at work, vague references to financial pressures. Nothing specific, just enough to plant seeds. By week 9, the seeds had sprouted. He told me about a major project at work that had fallen through, leaving him with unexpected debt. He apologized for burdening me with it, said he was embarrassed to even mention it, that he was handling it, but it was stressful. How much debt are we talking about? Michelle asked sympathetically. $15,000. I know it doesn't sound like much, but with my mortgage and my daughter's college tuition, it's more than I can absorb right now. Can you get a loan? I've tried. My credit is maxed out from the divorce. The banks won't touch me. Hook baited. Now we waited for him to reel me in. It took another week. Mentions of collection calls. Stress affecting his sleep. Apologies for being distracted during our dates. And then, finally, the ask. We were sitting in his car after dinner and he turned to me with tears in his eyes. Real tears. Or maybe just really good fake ones. Michelle, I need to ask you something and I'm so ashamed to even say it. What is it? I need help. Financial help. Just temporary. Just until my next project comes through. But I don't have anyone else to ask. How much do you need? $15,000. I know it's a lot. I know we haven't known each other that long. But I'm desperate and you're the only person I trust. The same sob story. The same manufactured crisis. The same exploitation of trust and affection. But this time, Michelle had an answer ready. I care about you, Robert, and I want to help. But I need to be honest. I've been burned before. My ex-husband had some financial troubles that I helped with, and it ended badly. So if I'm going to help you, I need some assurance that this is legitimate. I watched his face carefully. This was the moment of truth. Would he walk away from a Mark who was asking questions, or would he adapt? He adapted. Of course, I completely understand. What kind of assurance do you need? Documentation, proof that the debt is real, and I'd like to pay the creditors directly, rather than just giving you cash. That way I know the money is going where you say it is. For just a second, I saw frustration flicker across his face, but he recovered quickly. That's fair. That's absolutely fair. Let me get you the documentation. 3 days later, he sent me PDFs of collection letters, credit card statements, and loan documents. They looked official, complete with letterheads and account numbers. They were also completely fake. Patricia ran them through her contacts, and every single document came back as fraudulent. The collection agency didn't exist. The credit card company had never issued an account in that name. The loan was from a bank that had closed 3 years ago. We had him. So what now? Jennifer asked during our video call. Do we take this to the police? Not yet, Patricia said, because he'll just claim he made mistakes on the documents, that he sent the wrong file, that it was all a misunderstanding. We need him on record admitting the con. How do we get that? We make him think he's won, I said. Michelle gives him the money, and then we confront him with all 6 of us and record his reaction. That's dangerous, Lauren warned. We don't know how he'll react to being confronted. Then we do it in public, somewhere with cameras and witnesses, somewhere he can't run. We chose a busy restaurant in downtown Portland for the confrontation. I told Robert that I was in town visiting family and wanted to see him, that I'd be bringing a cashier's check for $15,000 to help with his debt, that I was so happy we'd found each other and I couldn't wait to start our future together. He practically jumped through the phone with enthusiasm. Michelle, you don't know what this means to me. I promise I'll pay you back. Every penny, the same promise he'd made to me as Diana, the same lie he'd told all of us. The restaurant was crowded for lunch, exactly as we'd planned. I got there first, took a booth in the back where the other women could position themselves nearby. Patricia had cameras hidden in her purse and her coat. Samantha had her phone set up to look like she was texting, but was actually recording video. The others were scattered throughout the restaurant, close enough to intervene if things went wrong, but far enough away to not be obvious. Robert arrived 10 minutes late, apologizing profusely, looking handsome and earnest in a button-down shirt and khaki. He slid into the booth across from me and reached for my hand. Thank you for doing this. You have no idea what it means to me. Before I give you the check, I need to ask you something. Anything. Is any of this real? Do you actually have feelings for me? Or am I just another Mark? His face went through several expressions. Confusion, hurt, concern, before settling on wounded sincerity. Michelle, how can you even ask that? Of course my feelings are real. I'm falling in love with you. Then you won't mind answering some questions, like why the collection letters you sent me are from a company that doesn't exist, or why the credit card statements show an account that was never issued, or why your loan documents are from a bank that closed in 2022. All the color drained from his face. There must be some mistake. I don't understand. I understand perfectly. Your name isn't Robert Mitchell. It's probably not any of the names you've used. You're a con artist who targets middle-aged women on dating sites, builds relationships with them, manufactures crises, and steals their money. And I know this because you already did it to me. I pulled off my glasses, let him see my face clearly for the first time, watched recognition dawn in his eyes, watched the charm evaporate and something colder underneath emerge. Diana? That's right, and I'm not alone. On cue, The other 5 women stood up from their tables and walked over to our booth, surrounded him. 6 women he'd victimized, 6 women he'd stolen from, 6 women he'd underestimated. "You took $43,000 from me," I said. "32,000 from me," Lauren added. "28,000 from me," Samantha said. "35,000 from me," Jennifer continued. "18,000 from me," Patricia said. "41,000 from me," Ruth finished. "That's over $200,000, I said. $200,000 stolen from 6 women who trusted you, who loved you, who would have done anything to help you." Roberts, or whatever his real name was, face had gone from pale to red. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, we can." Patricia pulled out her phone. "We have recordings of every conversation with Michelle. We have documentation of your fake financial record. We have testimony from all 6 of us about your pattern of behavior. And we have all of this on video right now." She pointed to the cameras positioned around the restaurant. His eyes darted around, finally seeing the trap he'd walked into. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice tight. "We want our money back," I said simply. "All of it. Every penny. Transferred to accounts we'll provide within the next 48 hours. And we want you to turn yourself into the police. And if I don't, then we release everything to the media. Your face, your aliases, your patterns. We make you famous. We make it so you can never run this con again. We destroy your ability to make a living by destroying women's lives." He laughed, but it sounded desperate. "You're bluffing. You won't do that." "Try us," Lauren said coldly. "We have nothing left to lose. You already took it." We left him sitting in that booth, surrounded by evidence of his crimes, and walked out together. 6 women who'd been victims and had chosen to become something else, something stronger. 46 hours later, I got an email notification. A wire transfer had hit my account. $43,000 minus the fees, exactly what he'd stolen. Over the next few hours, the other women received their money too. Not everything. Some of the funds were gone, spent, or hidden, but enough. Enough to feel like justice. Enough to feel like victory. And 3 days after that, we got a call from the detective who'd originally taken my report. "Miss Hartley, I wanted to let you know that we've arrested a man named Trevor Walsh for multiple counts of wire fraud and theft by deception. Your case file helped us build our prosecution." Trevor Walsh, his real name. After all those aliases, all those fake identities, we finally knew who he actually was. "What happens now?" I asked. "He'll go to trial. With your testimony and the evidence you gathered, we're confident we can convict him. He's looking at 5 to 10 years. 5 to 10 years. It wouldn't erase what he'd done. It wouldn't give us back the months we'd lost to grief and shame and anger. But it was something. It was accountability." The trial happened in March, 9 months after he'd first disappeared with my money. All 6 of us testified, telling our stories in front of a courtroom full of people. I watched Trevor Walsh sit at the defense table, wearing a suit and a carefully blank expression, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, just a kind of distant relief that it was almost over. The jury took less than 3 hours to convict him on all counts. At sentencing, the judge looked at Trevor and said, "You didn't just steal money from these women. You stole their trust, their dignity, their belief in human goodness. That's a theft that can't be repaid with dollars. But I can ensure that you spend the next 8 years thinking about the harm you've caused." 8 years, not enough, but more than nothing. As we left the courthouse, the 6 of us stood on the steps in the spring sunshine, and for a moment, no one knew what to say. We'd been united by trauma, by victimhood, by the shared experience of being betrayed. But now what? "We should stay in touch," Lauren said finally. "Not because of him, but because of us. Because we're more than what he did to us." We exchanged real phone numbers, real email addresses, real names, and real lives. And slowly, carefully, we built friendships from the ashes of what he'd tried to destroy. It's been 2 years now since I met Ryan Castellano or Marcus Webb or Trevor Walsh. 2 years since I wrote that check for $43,000. 2 years since I learned that love can be weaponized, that vulnerability can be exploited, that trust is both a gift and a risk. I got most of my money back, though not all. The retirement trip I'd planned is smaller now, more modest. But I'm taking it next month, a tour of Ireland with Lauren, who's become my closest friend. We joke that we're terrible at picking men, but excellent at picking friends. I still work at the hospital, still save lives, still believe in helping people even though helping someone nearly destroyed me. My therapist says that's gross, that I've learned to maintain my compassion while protecting my boundaries, that I'm stronger for having survived this. Maybe she's right. I think about Trevor sometimes, about whether he understood what he'd done, whether he had any remorse, whether 8 years in prison would change him or just make him better at hiding what he is. Mostly though, I think about the woman I was before I met him, the one who believed that love was simple, that good intentions were enough, that the world was fundamentally kind. I can't be that woman anymore. She's gone, killed by betrayal and brought back to life as someone harder, more cautious, less willing to trust. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we're not supposed to stay innocent forever. Maybe wisdom is just the scar tissue that forms over wounds we've survived. I'm 53 now, single, independent, wary but not broken. I have my health, my job, my kid, my friends. I have a life that's mine, built on foundations that can't be stolen because they exist inside me, not in a bank account. And if I ever love again, and some days I think I might, some days I think I'm ready, it will be with eyes wide open, with questions asked and boundaries set, with the understanding that love is beautiful but it's also dangerous, and the only way to survive it is to know the difference between giving yourself to someone and losing yourself in them. Trevor Walsh tried to take everything from me, my money, my dignity, my faith in humanity. He failed because the thing he never understood, the thing people like him can never understand, is that we're more than what they steal from us. We're more than our mistakes and our vulnerabilities and our desperate desire to be loved. We're survivors. We're fighters. We're women who fell down and got back up and helped each other stand. And that's something no con artist can ever take away.